horror films, in particular, like sort of werewolf stories, always have a lot of different sort of symbolic meanings to them. Was there any sort of central idea or metaphor that you particularly wanted to kind of build this story around?
Yeah, well, I mean, the fairy tales in and of themselves come with a lot of symbols and that's baggage like that. So there was definitely the idea of the wolf as predator, as not necessarily, literally, just a monster, but a person who preys upon you. So that was the idea of for who that wolf was that he was someone that's close to you that takes advantage of you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, how tough was it to sort of integrate, say, that idea with sort of this Red Riding Hood myth, and then at the same time, there's also this sort of cultural metaphor of sort of people being played against each other based on their fear and things like that. How tough was it to sort of integrate all those things?
It the sort of the symbol of the wolf came right from the story for me. I felt like there are lots of different theories about what the wolf is supposed to be and what the story is supposed to tell us, but the idea that that he in all versions of those theories, he's always a predator of some kind, and sort of backtracking then from that, the idea, in order for it to be a mystery, I had to create. I had to make it a werewolf. It had to be a person who became a wolf, as opposed to because that was a question at one point. Was this just a magical fairy tale wolf who preys upon this village, or is it somebody? Can it be a character? So as soon as it became a character, then the idea. That's where sort of the idea of the paranoia came from. Was the idea that this predator could, be someone you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it all sort of evolved directly from the fairy tale, really.
Mm-hmm. Well, Catherine obviously has a real pedigree, being able to sort of capture the dimensionality of sort of young womanhood.
Right.
How much of that was kind of seeded in your story, and then what sort of imprint did she make upon sort of the execution of your story to sort of integrate that sort of quality to the
Yeah, well, it was always,
film?
it was going back to the fairy tale. It strikes me as a coming of age story. That is a young woman. It's a journey to adulthood kind of thing. So that aspect of it was, I thought, really important to the script, and that's what I brought to it was the idea of making this a young woman. It's a coming of age story, and then that just seemed to play right into Catherine's strengths, and what she brought to it was, somehow she taps into that feeling in a way. It's kind of, I don't completely understand how she does it,
Mm-hmm.
but the words on the page sort of became, I think she brought an authenticity to it that maybe, I don't know whether that was on the page or not.
Mm-hmm. You have this really cool sort of dream sequence that directly references, of course, Red Riding Hood, but in general, and particularly because if the original sort of fairy tale is not sort of concretely about werewolves, I think. What sort of wolf or werewolf sort of mythology, like sort of the long history of werewolves and stuff, did you want to make sure that you included, or how much did you want to exclude, because this was going to sort of be its own thing?
Right. I just drew on everything. I found just the most obscure werewolf factoids. There was actually there used to be a lot more mythology of the wolf in the script than it is now, because I had sort of accumulated so much. I just wanted to create it, wanted it to be familiar, but also get rid of the things that didn't fit in, and build a story that the mystery depends very heavily on a lot of that werewolf mythology. So it was the stuff I sort of left out was this, or the stuff I kept in was everything's sorry, I'm drawing a blank here, but it had to be part of the mystery. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
But for this to solve the mystery, there were these, you know, aspects of the werewolf mythology that would then play and be important. So I'm going to stop that one there because I'm not sure where I was going.
No, not at all. How tough or easy was it to sort of conceive of like these sort of wolf set pieces that were going to be very sort of specifically integrated into like the overall narrative? Because you kind of have to have that payoff, that kind of, you know, visceral excitement of these werewolf sequences.
Right.
But at the same time, you don't want them just to be like in the script. I'm sure it doesn't go werewolf stuff happens
Right.
in the next scene. Now they're recovering from werewolf stuff happening. Like,
Right.
how tough or easy or fun was that to sort of work through those?
I felt like the wolf was something we were only going to be able to get away with a couple times, you know, that you don't want it to be like, you know, hanging out and talking to people a lot, you know. So I tried to like tease out the reveal for as long as possible so that when it does show up, it has an impact. And I basically just wanted every time you saw the wolf that something huge was going to happen in the story, as opposed to just having him sort of be around. That his presence signaled something serious is about to happen.
When you have actors like Julie Christie and Gary Oldman, I mean, the rest of the cast is obviously wonderful as well, but you have these real heavyweights, you know, these
Right.
folks with all this experience. Do you find yourself kind of going, well, these guys will bring any amount of gravitas that I may have been lacking when I conceived this to it? Do you write it knowing that like this is going to be the greatest thing for them to sink their teeth into? Or I assume you didn't know who was going to maybe play those characters, but you know, sort of what is that kind of experience like for you as a screenwriter, coming up with ideas for a certain kind of character and then imagining or seeing how it gets translated by an actor of that caliber?
Yeah, everybody in the cast is terrific, but you know, I mean, when you're talking about those two in particular, there's so much history and so, you know, they're so beloved. I just, honestly, I was just hugely flattered. I was like, wait, he read it? Wait, he's saying yes? And like, Julie Christie's the grandmother? It was just, it was kind of a dream come true. I mean, you know, these people are going to really make you look good. You know?
I don't know if it's along exactly the same lines or in sort of the opposite direction. For you as a screenwriter, obviously the execution of a film is so dependent on the visual aspects, the technical aspects, and all these other things that are completely out of your control.
Right.
So how do you sort of measure or what sort of barometer do you have for like your sense of satisfaction when you create something? Because of course you could do something, the movie could turn out amazing and it has nothing to do, or it seems to have nothing to do with what you did, or it could be exactly what you did and executed in a way that might be, you know, disappointing to you or something.
I wrote for so long without getting things produced. I wound up setting the bar of satisfaction very low. So I sort of view my first draft, the first draft is always for me, you know, because after that everybody gets an opinion and everybody gets to shape it the way they want to. That's just the way it works. But while I'm writing the script and nobody's doing that, I can make it exactly how I want to do it. And if I can achieve what I set out to do in that first draft, I'm happy, you know. And then after that, you know, I'm happy with this movie, I'm happy with Orphan, and by the time it comes out and it's done, you realize, you know, when it's the script, it's like, well, this is my script. It's not my movie. I mean, there's the actors and director, and everybody has so much to do with it. It's such a collaborative medium. You know, my section of the pie, you know, becomes it's something I contributed as opposed to this is my thing.